You are 22 years old, and your first real paycheck just landed. $2,400, sitting in a checking account you barely understand. Nobody ever taught you what to do with it, so you do the most natural thing in the world. You do nothing, and that single quiet decision, the decision to simply wait and figure it out later, is about to cost you more than $400,000 over the course of your life. You will never get a bill for it. That is exactly why it is so dangerous. This is your life if you never learn about money. Not the dramatic version, where you lose everything in one terrible night. The other one, the slow one, the version where nothing ever goes catastrophically wrong, and yet somehow you arrive at the end with almost nothing. Let me show you how it actually happens, one silent payment at a time. Age 22. The money sits and you spend what you spend, and you save whatever is left, which is usually nothing. You are not careless. You are just running on a simple rule you never chose, the rule that says money is something that arrives and then leaves, and your only job is to enjoy the part in the middle. Then comes the first overdraft. $35, because one payment cleared 2 days before your paycheck did. It stings for an hour and then you forget it. It happens again the next month. And the month after that. You do not think of these as tuition, but that is exactly what they are. You are paying to learn a lesson nobody ever sat you down to teach. $35 here, $40 there. A late fee on a bill you genuinely forgot existed. Banks collect billions of dollars a year this way, and almost all of it comes from people exactly like you, people who are not broke, just unaware. By the time you are 26, you have handed over more than $2,400 in overdraft and late fees for nothing. And here is the part that matters most. You are not bad with money. You simply never learned the rules of a game you were already forced to play. Age 27. The credit card arrives and it feels like a promotion, a little plastic rectangle that quietly raises the ceiling on your entire life. Suddenly you can afford things this month that you could not actually afford this month. You carry a balance because everyone around you carries a balance, and the minimum payment looks so gentle, so harmless. $50. What the statement does not say in large, honest print is that your interest rate is 24%. So you pay the $50, and the balance barely moves because most of that payment is not going toward the thing you bought. It is rent. Rent on money you already spent. You buy a television for $600, and by the time it is actually paid off, it has cost you closer to $900, and it is already out of date. Do this for 15 years the way most people quietly do, and you will pay more than $38,000 in credit card interest alone. $38,000 that bought you nothing. Not a car. Not a home, not a single memory you can point to. It simply evaporated in small monthly pieces too small to ever notice leaving. You are not reckless. You are leaking a little every month in a way that no one around you ever calls an emergency. Age 30. The car. The salesman does not talk about the price because the price is not where the money is made. He talks about the monthly payment because the monthly payment is how the total gets hidden. For $100 a month for 72 months, and it sounds so reasonable that you never once sit down and calculate that you are paying $9,000 in interest on top of a machine that loses half its value while you sleep. And because the payment is just a number that shows up every month, you get used to it, and when this car is done, you do it again. And again. You spend your entire adult life making a car payment, and you never once own a car outright. The math you were never shown is simple and brutal. The wealthy buy assets that pay them. You have been buying liabilities that charge you and calling it normal. Age 32. There is one more door open in this stretch of your life, and it is the widest one you will ever be offered. Your job has a retirement match. For every dollar you put in up to a limit, your employer adds one more. That is a 100% return instantly before the market does anything at all. It is the closest thing to free money that exists in the adult world. But the form looked complicated. The words on it, contribution, vesting, allocation, sounded like a language for other people. So you tell yourself you will set it up when things calm down. Things never calm down. Over your career, you walk away from more than $60,000 your employer was literally holding out its hand to give you. And the truth settles in quietly. You are not behind because you earn too little. You are behind because your money has no instructions. Now stop, because this is the mechanism nobody ever explained. The one thing that turns all of these small leaks into a catastrophe. Ignorance compounds. You have heard that money invested grows on itself, that $1 becomes $2, then $4, then $8 quietly in the dark while you sleep. But the very same law runs in reverse. Every dollar that leaks, every match you skip, every year you wait, that also compounds silently against you. The person who learns the rules at 25 spends the next 40 years with the wind at their back. You spend the same 40 years in the same economy with the exact same wind blowing the other way. This is the quiet engine of the whole story. Nobody is stealing from you. There is no villain here, no single moment of disaster you could point to and say, that is where it went wrong. There is only a system doing precisely what it was built to do to a person who never learned how it works. Age 35. And here is the cruelest turn of all, because at some point you do try. You feel the fear, you know you are behind, and you decide to finally do something about it. But you walk into that decision without the rules, and a person without the rules is the easiest person in the world to sell to. So someone friendly puts you into a managed account that quietly charges 2% a year, or an insurance product dressed up as an investment, and it feels responsible. It feels like you are finally being an adult. What no one tells you is that a 2% annual fee, compounded across 30 years, can silently eat a third of everything you ever earn on that money. You did the right thing, and you were still charged for not knowing better. That is the deepest trap in this entire story. Ignorance does not only cost you when you do nothing. It costs you even when you try, because trying without knowledge just means you pay someone else to stay confused. Age 40. This is where it starts to become visible, and it becomes visible through comparison. There is someone you started out with, a friend, a coworker, someone who earned roughly what you earned. Years ago, quietly, they began putting a few $100s a month into a boring index fund. They never bragged about it. They were not smarter than you, they did not work harder than you, and honestly they thought about it far less than you would assume. They just learned one thing you never did early enough for it to matter. And now, at 40, they have a portfolio that grew mostly on its own, money making money, while you have a car you are still paying off and a balance you are still carrying. The gap between the two of you has nothing to do with income. Run the numbers on what steady, ordinary, unremarkable investing would have become across those years, and the opportunity cost of never starting is more than $410,000. Read that again. That is not money you lost in a crash. That is money that was never allowed to exist because it was never planted. You are not unlucky. You are uncompounded. Age 45. Then life does the thing life always does. Something breaks. The car needs a transmission, the roof starts to leak. A medical bill arrives with a number on it that does not seem real. For the person who learned the rules, this is an inconvenience. They have a fund for exactly this, sitting quietly, waiting for a bad day. For you, there is no fund because there was never anything left over to build one. So you reach for the only tool you were ever handed, which is borrowing at the worst possible rate, at the worst possible moment, when you have no leverage at all. The emergency does not just cost what it costs. It costs that plus interest, plus the months of stress, plus the deeper hole it digs. This is what financial stress actually feels like. It is not a number on a page. It is lying awake at 2 a.m, doing the same impossible math over and over, hoping the answer changes. It never does. Age 50. The stress has a different texture now. In your 20s, money problems felt temporary, like whether that would eventually pass. Now they feel structural, like the shape of the building you have to live inside. You open the retirement account you finally started, too late, and the number is small enough that you close the app quickly, before it can say anything else to you. The doors that stood wide open at 30 are narrow now. You cannot take the patient, high-growth path anymore because you no longer have the one ingredient that ever made it safe, and that ingredient was time. So you begin making decisions out of necessity instead of choice. You stay in the job you wanted to leave a decade ago. You say no to things you can no longer afford to say yes to, and you feel it for the first time clearly in your chest. You are not out of time yet, but for the first time in your life, you can actually hear it running. Age 65. This is the year you were promised, the finish line, the reward. Instead, you sit down and do the arithmetic, and the arithmetic does not care how hard you worked or how good a person you are. The account that was supposed to carry you cannot carry you. So you keep working, not because the work gives you meaning, but because the alternative is a math problem with no solution in it. And somewhere in a quiet moment, you add up the whole thing. The overdrafts, the interest, the match you skipped, the car payments that never ended, the $400,000 that was never planted, and the total, the true silent cost of never learning across one ordinary and completely respectable life is well over $1 million. Not because anything ever went wrong, because nothing ever went right and no one ever told you that it could have. But there is one more cost, and it is the heaviest one of all because it does not end with you. Your children were watching the entire time. They learned money the way you learned it, which is to say, they absorbed it from the air, from your habits, from the tension in the room when a bill arrived. You could not teach them what you were never taught. So the overdrafts, the minimum payments, the meaning to get to it, all of it quietly boards the next train and rides straight into the next generation. This is how financial illiteracy actually passes down. Not as a curse, not as bad luck, as a silence, as the questions that were never asked at a kitchen table because nobody sitting at that table knew the answers. Now stop one more time because this is the part that changes everything. Everything I just described is real. It is common. It is happening right now to millions of intelligent, hardworking, decent people who have no idea it is happening at all. But notice what you have been doing for the last several minutes. You have been paying attention to money on purpose. You let yourself look directly at the one thing most people spend an entire lifetime avoiding. And that single act, the exact thing you are doing at this very moment, is what breaks the pattern. Because the silent cost is only silent while you refuse to listen to it. The moment you understand how one fee works, one match, one index fund, one interest rate, the spell breaks. Money stops being whether that happens to you and becomes a system you can actually operate. And here is the reframe that matters more than any number in this video. This was never really about money. The 400,000, the million, those are just the scoreboard. What this is truly about is who you get to become once the arithmetic is finally on your side instead of against you. The person who learns the rules is not richer because they were lucky or gifted or born into the right family. They are richer because at some ordinary, forgettable moment, they decided to stop waiting for permission to understand. The quiet rich are made, not born. Early, patient, and unwilling to look away. The most expensive thing you can ever do with money is ignore it. And the fact that today, right now, you did not, means the most expensive part of this whole story is the one part that no longer belongs to you. New stories from the other side, every day. I'll see you at the next level.